You ever looked at your analytics and thought, I don't trust this? You're not crazy. Most business owners don't actually understand how tracking works. It's not because they're careless, not because they're bad at marketing either, but because no one ever explained it clearly. So when numbers don't line up and performance drops with nothing changing, the assumption is that you did something wrong. Well, in reality, what's breaking isn't your ads, it's how tracking actually works. So let me explain what no one bothered to explain. This is Marketing Data 101, how first-party data and tracking actually works. Before we can talk about performance, attribution, or optimization here, we have to clear up one core misunderstanding. Most people talk about tracking as if ads are watching people. They're not. Marketing platforms don't see people, they see signals. Those signals can come from first-party data collected when someone interacts with your business. That could be a page view, a button click, time spent reading, a form submission, even a completed purchase. Each of these is one single event within the business. Now, on their own, these events don't describe a person. They describe behavior. Tracking is the process of observing how those behaviors repeat, how they connect, and how consistent they are over time. So let's define first-party data clearly. First-party data is the information collected directly from interactions within your business. That can include what happens on your website, but it could also include what lives inside your systems. That's your CRM, your lead forms, your customer lists, and your app data. Any data that exists between someone chose to interact with you is that first-party data. And the key thing to understand is this. First-party data doesn't live as raw events, it's your live audiences. So an audience is just a group of people defined by what they've already done with your business. Someone who submits a lead form but hasn't purchased yet, that's part of your lead audience. Someone in your CRM who requested a quote, that's usually a high-intent audience. Someone who purchased once and exists in your customer list, well, that's a prior customer audience. If they purchase again, they become a returning customer audience. They haven't visited your site, opened an email, or booked the service in months, that's a lapsed customer audience. The platform doesn't change this logic, only the environment does. None of the audiences come from guessing who someone is, they come from first-party data. And that data is created by those real actions within the business. And this is the part that matters more than what most people realize, is that these audiences are actually customizable. You decide what actions do. A form fill can mean interest for your business. Quote request can mean urgency. Repeat visits can mean consideration. Inactivity can also mean churn risk. It's all dependent on the business type and industry. Those definitions are yours, not the platform's. So these audiences exist because of the direct relationship between your business and your customers. They don't come from data brokers, they do not come from rented data lists, and they don't disappear when your platform changes rules. This is the only data you actually own. Once first-party data is collected, once audiences are formed from that data, the next question is how the systems keep track of it. This is where tracking comes in. It's not about watching people, it's about maintaining that context over time within the audience. So when someone visits your site, that interaction creates a moment. That tracking is there to relate that moment to the future moments it'll predict you'll do. This is why things like cookies exist, and cookies act as memory. They help systems organize what visit today is connected to the visit yesterday. Pixels are your observers. They're going to act as a way to report a specific action from social back to a page, a form submission, or a purchase, and provides context to that session. They group actions together so behavior is understood as a sequence, not isolated clicks. When memory stays intact, behavior stays connected. And when behavior stays connected, the audience data stays active. When that context is earned, it remains stable, tracking becomes reliable, and when it breaks, the memory fragments. The memory fragments, audience kind of lose the clarity there, and that's why tracking doesn't fail suddenly, it degrades quietly, as context remains. So this is why data breaks. So once you understand how first-party data is collected, once you understand how audiences are built from that data, the next question is, why does it break? Marketing systems don't recognize people the way humans do. They recognize identifiers, like your browser environment, device identifiers, session history, user ID tags, lead records tied to those ID tags. So when those identifiers don't stay consistent, the behavior disconnects. And when they do, the context connects. This is where normal business behavior quietly creates a problem. You get multiple people logging into the same accounts. You get different devices touching the same lead records, different locations generating events for the same user, agencies, contractors, and internal teams all sharing the same access to the same user, and your CRM, analytics tools, and ad platforms receiving conflicting signals on each user ID. From inside the business, this will feel completely normal. It will feel like collaboration. But from the system's perspective, the same user suddenly looks like multiple identities, and multiple identities look like uncertainty. When identity breaks, that memory fragments, and when it fragments, the first-party data stops switching again. The website doesn't no longer connects to the lead form. The lead form no longer connects to an exact CRM record. That exact CRM record no longer connects to the audience. That data doesn't just disappear. The system just can't confidently tell who is who anymore. This is why performance will degrade without warning, and why attribution becomes fuzzy. This is usually why retargeting stops converting, and even though traffic still exists, your identity that you put on your user stops making sense once there's less confidence on who that user is. This is why professionals care so much about controlled environments and stable identity and tying first-party lead data to consistent user ID within their target. Because when it drifts, everything downstream becomes less reliable. So when a system becomes less confident, it starts protecting itself, and that shows up in several measurable ways. Your cost per click typically increases. Your cost per lead usually goes up. Your return on ad spend starts to decline, even if the spend stays the same. Your reach often expands unintentionally, but because the system's struggling to find qualified matches. So, for your business level symptoms, this is where it gets growing. It becomes more obvious as your lead quality goes down, your set rates drop, your show rates decline, and close rates suffer within your sales process. Not because the demand disappeared, but because your intent's no longer being segmented accurately. When audiences lose clarity, targeting becomes broader, and broader targets always mean lower intent. From the outside, this can feel kind of random, almost sporadic. From the system's perspective, it's a logical response to the lack of the audience. When patterns stop making sense, systems reduce precision. This is the point where better questions matter to ask. Like, are my audiences actually defined by intent or just traffic? Am I segmenting new prospects differently than returning customers? Is first-party data from my CRM being used to inform targeting, or is it just sitting there? And is anyone actually measuring how the signals connect across the system? Because when those questions aren't answered, performance problems usually aren't creative issues, they're signal issues. This is where the difference actually starts to show. Not between good and bad marketers, but between businesses that run campaigns and businesses that design systems that power campaigns. So here's multiple steps to get this defined. Step 1, define your key events first. Professionals don't start with ads, they start defining the key events for leads. Key event is a business action that signals intent. A lead form submission, quote request, a booking, a purchase, or a meaningful return visit to your website. Normal events happen constantly. Key events are the ones that matter, and until these are defined, audiences can't be meaningful. Step 2, you gotta define the purpose of each audience. Once key events are defined, audiences can be defined. But here's the part most businesses skip. Every audience needs a purpose, not just a label. It needs explicit cause that leads to intent. So think about it. An abandoned cart audience exists to recover lost revenue. A quote request audience exists to close active demand. A prior customer audience exists to increase lifetime value. And a lapsed customer audience exists to reactivate intent. If you cannot clearly state what each audience is for, it probably shouldn't be targeted. The next step is to segment before you spend money. And this is why professionals segment before spending, because that new visitor isn't treated like a known. That known lead's not treated like a typical customer. And the high intent users aren't treated like the low intent traffic. And this is the difference between retargeting and prospecting a familiar audience. After that, step 4 is to connect CRM data to audiences. This is also where first-party CRM data becomes powerful. Lead data shouldn't live only inside the CRM, it should inform your entire system. A lead list becomes a CRM audience, and that audience is shared with your analytics platform and then activated across your ad platforms like Google or Meta. This is how retargeting becomes intentional. The next step 5, maintain identity consistency. You also have to design for consistency with this audience, not by locking everything down, but by being intentional. Which events belong to which users? How CRM records map to your analytics identities? How access is shared without contaminating data? And how audiences update over time? Consistency is what allows us to stay confident in this. Step 6 is to measure what actually matters. Professionals tend to measure the outcomes that reflect the intent, not just clicks, but the quality, which is typically shown in business metrics, like your set rate, your show rate, your close rate, your revenue per lead, or lifetime value by audience segments. Those numbers tell you whether your audience definitions are working or just drifting. None of this requires better ads, it requires clearer intent on how you define it. So when these key events are defined and audiences have a purpose, and when first-party data is actually connected, signal quality improves and performance follows. For a lot of people, the first time this really clicks is when something feels off. You look at a product once and suddenly that product follows you for weeks. Most people assume that's because they're being watched, like someone's spying on them on the computer. What's actually happening is way simpler than that. Your online behavior is being stitched together into a single identity. When people hear the term anti-detect browser, it's easy to misunderstand what that actually means. You gotta control your identity with it, your location, and your environment, so your behavior doesn't automatically stitch together. This same isolation layer is also why tools like GoLogOn can access region-restricted content, because identity and location are treated as configurable environments, not permanent attributes. For teams, this is why professionals don't log in and out of accounts on a single browser. We tend to use a separate environment per profile. It's also why teams tend to share browser profiles instead of passwords, so access doesn't distort identity or contaminate that audience data.
The internet today isn't as open and simple as it used to be. Some content's restricted by location, websites track your every move, and managing multiple online accounts can feel impossible without getting flagged. Whether you're trying to browse privately, access geo-blocked content, or securely manage multiple accounts, you need a tool that will give you full control over your online identity. That's where GoLogin comes in. GoLogin isn't just about privacy, it's about freedom, security, and control over your online experience. Here's what makes it different. You can unblock any content, access restricted sites like streaming platforms and services, you have full digital privacy, unlike some browsers, and it stops websites from tracking you. Along with that, you have multi-account management, which allows you to switch between different profiles for work or social media, business, and others. Work securely from anywhere, share accounts with your team without sharing the passwords. No IP bans, no tracking. GoLogin hides more than just your location, it protects your online identity. If you want privacy, security, and complete online freedom, GoLogin is the tool you need. Try it for free today and click the link in the description.
So it's important that you get this in a clear manner. Tracking doesn't magically appear when you use one of these. What changes is the continuity of the user profile. A VPN is like a mask. It hides where you are. It's like an environment isolation. It's more like using a body double. Instead of one identity accumulating behavior over time, signals are fragmented across environments. That doesn't actually block data collection, it just makes long-term behavioral profiling harder by breaking association, not visibility. For advertisers, this protects audience hygiene and client data. But for a consumer, which is most of us, it's going to reduce persistent profile. Same system, different reasons. So let's talk about how first-party data actually works in practice. Before I wrap this up, I want to answer a few questions people typically ask once this finally starts to click. These aren't just marketing questions or system questions, they're for most people. What is first-party data really? The short answer is it's information created by someone directly interacted with your business. That includes website behavior, purchases, form fills, app usage, and CRM methods. But what matters isn't where it's collected, it's that the data exists because of a direct relationship, not through a third party. First-party data is strongest when tied to intent, not its activity. What's the difference between first-party data and third-party data? First-party data is observed directly. Third-party data is inferred elsewhere and/or rented. First-party data comes from your audience, whereas third-party data comes from aggregation. That's why that first-party data is far more accurate and more fragile if it's mishandled. So what's the difference between first-party data and zero-party data? First-party data is the observed behavior, like what we mentioned before, whereas zero-party data is volunteered information. Clicks, purchases, and visits to your website are first-party data. Surveys, preferences, and explicit answers are zero-party. Both are valuable, but still require clear intent definitions to be used. How is first-party data actually collected? Well, the answer's simple, it's through normal business interactions. Website and app activity, transactions and purchases, forms, signups, and gated content, CRM and customer support interactions, and offline touchpoints like calls or events are how this gets collected. These are events, not audiences. Audiences are created after patterns form. How is first-party data used effectively? First-party data becomes powerful when it's grouped by intent, like these examples: recent buyers, quote requests, returning users, and inactive customers. Those groups are what platforms actually optimize against. Why do businesses collect first-party data but still struggle with performance then? Collection isn't the problem, connection is, and data lives in silos. Data silos don't map the events together cleanly between users, and those audiences end up not updating, and that intent loses its definition of it. Does server-side tracking fix first-party data issues? Well, it could help, but it's not a shortcut. Server-side tracking gives you more control over how data is processed. It doesn't remove the need for that consent. And it doesn't fix unclear intent or broken identity on its own. Infrastructure supports clarity, doesn't create it. Does first-party data help with privacy compliance in the modern day time? Yes, when it's handled correctly. because you know where that data came from, you know why it was collected, and you can honor consent, access, and deletion requests based off the lead form. Compliance comes from the ownership of that data, not avoiding it. What's the biggest mistake businesses make with first-party data? They treat it like a reporting list. Instead of a decision-making system, they just collect everything. They end up not defining it, which they lose the power of the audience. Before we close this out, let's quickly review what we actually covered today. First is first-party data. It's not abstract. It's real actions people take with your business. Websites, the forums, the purchase, the CRM. Second, it's your audiences. Audiences aren't guesses of who people are. They're groups defined by intent and behavior. A visitor becomes a lead, which becomes a customer, which then becomes someone in the last audience. Third is tracking. Tracking is not surveillance, it's the memory and context over time you collect. That visit can be remembered and then connected. Fourth, what breaks with first party? When identity and context become inconsistent, your memory fragments, and audiences lose clarity. Lower quality audience equals lower quality ad performance. Fifth, the consequence. When systems lose confidence, costs rise, reach widens, and your lead quality drops. Typically, this is cost per click increasing, return on ad spend decreasing, and lead quality decreasing. And finally, the difference a professional will make here. They start by fixing signal quality. Events turn to audiences, which turn to outcomes. And cleaning that will make sure that it works better for your audience. Marketing feels confusing. It's usually not because the tools are broken. It's because intent isn't clearly defined. Audiences aren't purposely built, and first-party data is not fully connected. At Drive Insight, this is where we start. Before we optimize, before we spend, before we even create tactics, we want to diagnose how this data flows, how your intent's defined, how your audiences are built, and where that signal breaks. Clarity first, optimization second.